Hey everyone, this is Nathas, and in order to celebrate the fact that Set 2 from Solforge Fusion releases tomorrow, I'm going to be opening a Set 1 Solforge Fusion Demo Kit. So for anyone who hasn't seen one of these, but when the game initially came out, Stoneblade sent a bunch of stores demo kits, which are basically Kickstarter kits with a demo kit box, and they were meant to help people demo the game. And I was able to get my hands on a few, and today I'm going to be opening one to help celebrate the fact that tomorrow we will be getting Set 2 of the game, and we will be able to see a whole new set of cards, and the meta is going to change. So today I'm going to be opening a demo kit. So for anyone who hasn't seen it, the box art is a little bit different. It kind of matches what you see on the Kickstarter. Um, you will get one deck of each faction. You'll get 2 paper playmats, a bunch of minion cards, including some Kickstarter minions, and then some of the health tracker cards. So let's get this open and see what we get. Oops, there we go. And once I hit 100 followers on my Twitch channel, which also uses NathasGaming, I will be giving one of these away to one of my followers on Twitch. So anyone who hasn't actually followed me there, I do gameplay, I do openings, and I would definitely recommend following me there. Alright, so the first thing we get is a set of little health trackers, attack and defense. These are the same as in the Alpha Starter kits. You also get some minions, including some Kickstarter minions. So I'll go through these real quick. You get a Kickstarter Wisp, which turns into a Kickstarter Oakfather. We get a Spell Sprite Kickstarter Altart, which turns into an Altart Spell Swarm. And we get 2 normal minions of the other. We get a Kickstarter Mindless Zombie, which turns into a Zombie Brute. And then we finally get a Kickstarter Gizmo, which turns into a Kickstarter Mega Gizmo. So whenever you open a demo kit, it will have alternate art minions just like you do in a normal Kickstarter set. Now we get 2 paper playmats. This is the same exact art for the Kickstarter Alpha starter kit, so you'll get these in every kit. And then we get 4 decks, one of each faction. So the interesting thing to note is because this is a starter kit, you will get 2 decks that have forges. You'll get one that has a keyword card, and you'll get 1 alternate art Kickstarter, meaning this time we got a Spell Swarm. Alright, so I'm going to start by opening the Utera deck, and we'll see what we get here. And again, because this is a Kickstarter set, you'll have the alternate art Kickstarter symbol or Kickstarter color symbols. So you'll have a purple for rare, green for common. So that's a nice little cool thing you do if you get Kickstarter cards, and they are legal to play in any tournament as well. But it just kind of lets people know you started adopting the game early. So we're going to start with an Arrogant Rex, a Forge Seal, a Mystical Slayer, a Roaring Wartusk, a Spring Dryad, a Stout Ravager, a Summoning Council, a Swamp Moss Lurker, a Toxic Spores, and a Venerable Druid. Our Forgeborn here is going to be an Oros that has a Dark Forge Drain at level 2, a Shapeshift at level 3, and a Growth Aura at level 4. So the first thing to mention is because this Oros has a Dark Forge Drain at level 2, Forge Seal could be really interesting here, because if you pair this with a deck that could play a lot of spells, you can basically use your Forge Seal during cycle 1, or whatever cycle you decide to, in order to make one of your creatures bigger compared to the number of spells you play, and then as you play further on, your Forge Seal can also Shapeshift or Growth Aura. So that's definitely something that can be really interesting with this deck. You could also pair this with another deck that has a different Forgeborn that you'd rather use, and Forge Shield can really add a lot of utility here. So now, unfortunately, there are only 2 dinosaurs in this deck, the Rex and then the Swamp Moss, but the fact that Swamp Moss is here with the Spring Dryad means there's a very good chance that whenever you play it, it's going to be played for free. There's also the fact that the Stout Ravager, because it triggers when you gain life, Swamp Moss can be really important here. Now, there's a lot of ways to actually generate minions in this deck, including your Mystical Slayer, your Venerable Druid, and your Summoning Council. So there's a lot of ways to really fill the board and gain some life with that Spring Dryad. Roaring Wartusk can help buff one of those creatures, and Toxic Spores could be used a little bit as a removal. So this is an interesting deck. It's something that you would have to find the right pairing for, but it could end up being a perfect pairing for something that maybe is a Tempest deck with a lot of dinosaurs. Dinosaurs here might be like a side theme, and you might want to do something that's very minion heavy. So this is something that could be very interesting if you have the right pairing for it. But the fact that Dark Forge Drain and Forge Seal are here, you can basically have a very potentially aggressive game. And if you play a Summoning Council to get your Oak Father during cycle 2, if you get a level 2 Summoning Council and then you Forge Seal the Dark Forge Drain, you could potentially be putting a lot of breakthrough damage in against your opponent. So this is an interesting deck. I wish there was a little bit more life gain to help benefit both the Spring Dryad and the Swamp Moss Lurker. But your Forge Seal with all those minion generations could also gain you life. So it's definitely something that can help you do well against your opponent. So next we're going to go into Necrom. So we're going to start with an Abyssal Spirit, an Arrogant Slime, a Bone Scythe Reaver, a Camouflaged Apparition, a Corrupt Drake, a Dreadbolt, a Dissient Siphon, an Infernal Ritual, a Raging Creeper, and a Scourge Hydra. Now, the Forgeborn here is a Cersei with Soul Siphon at level 2, Army Commander at level 3, and Life Drain at level 4. So this is, initially when I was opening the deck, I wasn't super enthusiastic about it, but the second half of the deck really pulled through. So first of all, Abyssal Spirit can be really good because if it ends or finishes your cycle on the board, you could basically remove one of your opponent's creatures. So if you kind of strategically block, get everything out where I guess the Abyssal strategically attacks, you really can only play it in an empty lane. You can destroy one of their creatures at the end of the cycle. So this can be a really strong card to help keep stuff off the board. Now, your Bone Scythe Reaver can be used as removal. Your Camouflage Apparition and your Dissient Siphon and your Infernal Ritual could all be used to sacrifice one of your creatures, which could then benefit your Scourge Hydra. And then Infernal Ritual is a really strong card because when you're off Forge and you could play a bunch of zombie minions that could then get aggressive and power, it could really surprise your opponent and they might not be ready for a bunch of aggressive damage when you're off Forge. Dissient Siphon is one of my favorite cards in the game, just because it not only does it gain you life, deal damage, but it also lets you, if you sacrifice a creature, it could potentially help trigger something like a Scourge Hydra or anything where destruction matters on your side of the board. But then you also play cards for free, which lets you upgrade a lot more cards. Your Camouflage Apparition also, the fact that it has stealth and you may destroy one of your creatures to give it additional power and toughness, it's something that you can make it really big, really quick, and then potentially sneak in a lot of damage. So there's some interesting removal here with your Dreadbolt, your Reaver, and your Scourge Hydra. There's a lot of ways to play aggressively, and then your Raging Creeper also has aggressive. So this is one that you could really surprise your opponent. It's not necessarily the perfect purple deck, but the fact that it has Army Commander at level 3, which lets you kind of upgrade some cards, so you can play a level 1 Infernal Ritual and then Army Commander it to get it to level 3 and just be really ahead of the curve. And you could also pair this with a new Terra deck that has a Krogius and then just potentially cheat out a level 3 Krogius when you missed the level 1 or the level 2. But this one definitely has a lot of really good cards. The Corrupt Drake is interesting because even though you're taking damage off Corrupt, it does give it some pretty good stat boosts. And the fact that it has mobility can really make sure that Corrupt Drake is going to stay alive throughout the game. So now we're going to open our Aloyan deck. Alright, so we're starting with an Aetherforge Oracle. Then we're going to have an Apocamancer. We've got an Electronet, a Force Field, a Gauntlet of Solgrim, an Orlean Battle Droid, a Protective Scavenger, a Venerable Virtuoso, a Voltaic Prophet, and a Warmonger mod. So this deck is interesting because you actually have 4 spells, so it's not a ton of spells, but you have the ability to use your Electronet to play for free to kind of help push yourself forward and like potentially trigger your Voltaic Prophet a little bit early. Apocamancer is one of my favorite cards. Oh, and actually, sorry, I should probably look at the Forgeborn before getting into this. So we have a Steel Rosetta with a repurpose, so you can choose a creature if it was replaced this turn reanimated, which could be really good with your Apocamancer. It's got Inspire level 3 and then a Tinker level 4. So with the Pokemancer, Warmonger mod can be a really cool card because after you get through the level 1, you're basically going to play a Gizmo and then play a creature for free, which you could then replace it to really get some value out of your Pokemancer. Your Aetherforge Oracle can help you upgrade some cards that you might not want to play initially, but then the Battle Droid can push a lot of pressure just because unless your opponent has something that could give -1/-1 to the creature, it's going to be really hard for them to remove because the armor regenerates each turn. Um, there's not a ton of aggressive play with this, and there's not a lot of ways to really take advantage of the Apocamancer. But if you have a minion heavy deck or something that has a lot of creature generation, like if you have some summoning cards or in Tempest, or if you have a bunch of like mystical wisps and things like that in your Terra side, this definitely could be utilized pretty well. But the nice thing here is that the Apocamancer has stealth, and Force Field can help buff a warrior if you give it armor. So you can basically play your Apocamancer, you could Force Field it, and potentially deal a lot of damage all at once. Then every time you play a spell, your Voltaic Prophet, you get some armor to kind of stay resilient. So this is an interesting one. It's not one that I would build around specifically, but it's one that I think would potentially be a good fit for something that would appreciate the replacement triggers, the ability to upgrade a few cards, and then potentially have some warrior synergy. All right, so now the last deck out of our Kickstarter set is the Tempest. So we're going to start with an Asir Mech Mage, a Burnout, a Combat Giant, a Disintegrate, a Fit of Rage, a Fleet Stormling, a Lightning Tamer, a Stampeding Mystic, a Steadfast Worm, and a Windspark Elemental. Our Forgeborn here is a Sunder with Gathering Storm at level 2, Stimble at level 3, and Ice Armor at level 4. So this deck is a little all over the place. There are 1, 2, 3 total spells, even though there are a couple ways to take advantage of minions, because we have a Burnout, which creates spell swarms, the Lightning Tamer, which kind of acts a little bit like a spell sprite, and then it will also create either a spell sprite or a spell swarm. Um, so that can be a little interesting with the Asir Mech Mage, but that's really the only spell-based payoff in this deck is when you play a spell, you can deal damage either to a creature or player. That being said, if you can play a spell and then play a Fit of Rage, that could really help you pump all of your creatures or multiple creatures and give them breakthrough. So Windspark Elementalist or Elemental can be a great opportunity to remove creatures because if you're off Forge, you play it with aggressive, and then you deal damage to the player and you remove one of their creatures. That could really put you really far ahead in tempo. The Combat Giant can be really big, which can be great for pushing some damage through, but it doesn't have breakthrough, so you need something like Fit of Rage to help with that. The Disintegrate can help remove some big creatures if they played them that turn. But I think the fact that you can't really play any of these spells for free makes it really tough to get a lot of advantage out of something like Fit of Rage or Lightning Tamer. But the fact that the Mystic can give another one of your creatures, power and mobility can be really strong. But unfortunately, because the Mystic itself has a little bit lower stats, the breakthrough here might not be super relevant. But that being said, there's some mobility here. There's ways to move your creatures around. There's ways to remove some creatures. So this one could be interesting. But the fact that really the Sunder is the only way to play a free spell during cycle 3 could make it a little hard to really take advantage of this deck unless you pair it with something that could play a lot of spells or give something that's really aggressive. So thank you for watching this demo deck opening. Tomorrow is officially the release of set 2 of Solforge Fusion. So I wanted to open a demo deck just to kind of celebrate and just get excited for the fact that tomorrow we're going to be playing the new set. I know I'm going to be playing in a sealed tournament at my local store. And afterwards, I'll be coming home and I will be opening a booster kit. A booster display. So 4 booster kits of the second set on my Twitch channel. I'll be posting that video here as well. But if you want to watch that live, you could check it out on my Twitch. So it's twitch.tv/NathasGaming. Otherwise, you could watch the replay when I place it on YouTube. So thank you for tuning in. I hope everybody's excited for set 2, and I can't wait to see what we have in store. So thanks, and see you next time.